everyone. I am excited to be here. Had a little bit of fun chatting with you on Monday, and now I am here. I actually reached out to Sabrina like a year ago to be on here sipping tea with her, and she was like, I'm booked out for a year. But she put me in the calendar for July, and as some of you know, she's facing some health issues and has been in the hospital. So she's not here with us today. I don't actually get my opportunity to sip tea with Sabrina, which is like a huge part of why I wanted to do this. And I wanted to have that cool flow conversation, but the show must go on, and I'm here to do that. And you know, I just chatted with her. She's doing all right. She's just not able to be completely dedicated to the screen right now. So we're gonna roll with it. So I am Rebecca Britt. I am the host of the Harvesting Results podcast and YouTube channel with the Cthulhu Nonprofit Academy. And I am a program evaluator. I have worked for nonprofits and started my own nonprofit. So that's all I've done in my career. And I was the employee and the executive director that was like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Like, there's so many things, right? Nonprofit executive directors and employees and staff wear so many hats. And I was always the one like, why, to what end? And I realized that a lot of staff and executive directors do not know how to measure impact. So they don't really know how to say like they're boiling up to their big why. So I developed a unique program model that was matching up foster and adopted kids with equine assisted learning, so horses, and it's a replicable model, and I license it. We have almost 30 locations across the United States. So I really learned how to, replicate and license models. But with that, I have a bunch of locations, and I found out that they didn't really need a ton of help actually running the program that I had developed. They needed more help in nonprofit, just like administration, all of the things, right, that nonprofits need to do, board development and fundraising and staffing and leadership and measurement. So my big push to get into measurement was to demonstrate impact of all of my programs and also to help others demonstrate impact in a real simple, easy way. So that is what we're going to be talking about today. Now, I am one of those people that, like, on my YouTube channel, if you go to Cthulhu.com, it's K-O-T-U-L-O, and you click on the blog, or click on the YouTube icon, you can go to, excuse me, all of my videos. And a lot of my videos have templates, free templates, because I don't have time to do webinars. I don't have time to sit through somebody talking and good content most of the time, but I love working meetings. Like, as a consultant, I am the person that says, like, let's just hammer it out right now. So with that said, I want this time that we have together, I want it to be a working session. Like, get out some paper, get out a pen, let's hammer out some metrics that you can actually use. Let's start thinking about our processes of how we're going to actually track data and collect some of these metrics and use them to demonstrate your impact and prove that you're actually doing what you say that you're doing. You can head on over to Cthulhu.com/metrics. So Kotullo.com/metrics. And there's actually a worksheet that goes along with this. And the worksheet kind of helps you figure out the metrics for your organization really easily. You can fill that out while we're talking. And by the end of this session, you will have the metrics for your program so that you can start demonstrating impact. Okay, so that's Cthulhu.com/metrics. If you want to go grab that right now and come on back. Okay, so I will be going through some stuff with you to help you figure out how to measure what matters. So the first thing that we need to do to measure what matters is figure out what matters to you, right? Like, what matters to you. And I have a YouTube video on how to write a mission statement that doesn't suck, because let's be honest, there's a lot of crappy mission statements out there that are just, they leave something to be desired. You know, you hear about these great organizations and you look up their mission and you're still a little confused about what that actually means. So that's okay. If you're one of those people that are like not super in love with your mission statement, or you're not sure by the end of this that your mission statement actually does articulate what you do and for who and your desired result, then guess what? We get to evolve and change it. It's fine. It's okay if you need to reprint brochures, like burn it down. It's fine. We're always evolving. So what matters to you? This should be clearly stated in your mission statement. It should say what you're trying to accomplish and with who. So you don't want to include strategies. A lot of people say, we educate so-and-so by, and then you list, online education, da, 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 da. So, or we develop life skills through a unique program model. Okay, so here's my little trick. If you use the word by, or you use the word through, take that out. Everything after by or through, just strike through. Those are your strategies. That's how you do what you do, but it's not what you do and for what desired result. So I really want your mission statement to say, what do you do for who and for what desired result? So my program, working with foster kids and horses, our mission statement is to develop life skills in foster or adopted youth for healthy transitions into adulthood. So we're developing life skills. Who are we doing it for? Foster adopted youth. Why? Why are we doing it? Well, so that they have healthy transitions into adulthood. I got it. In that one sentence, I realized like you have programming that develops life skills for foster and adopted youth, and it's to help them have healthy transitions. Now, this is so important to not include. Now, you notice that I don't say we develop life skills in foster and adopted youth by using a mentorship program. That is what we do. We do it through mentorship and equine assisted learning. So a mission statement could say to develop life skills in foster and adopted youth through mentorship and equine assisted learning. But here's why that isn't good. Because one, it says my strategies, and two, it pigeonholes me to now only do these things, right? So now what if I learn that there's this evidence-based thing that's really great for foster adopted youth? It's this specific approach or this specific training or this specific, initiative, whatever, that I can plug in, but it has nothing to do with equine assisted learning. It doesn't have anything to do with mentorship. So now every time I change my strategy, do I need to go back to my mission statement and say, through this additional programming, through equine assisted learning, mentorship, and, celebrations and did it all the things we do? No, we don't need to. So take out your strategies and just say what you're going to do for who and for what desired result. Okay. So then I want to call out nonprofits in general, because a lot of those mission statements that suck, we really have a duty to the people that we're serving, like the people that our nonprofit is serving, to articulate how amazing our programs and services are and like the change that needs to be seen. Like, what are we addressing? Okay. So, I've seen a lot of floaty mission statements that are kind of like, bringing peace or improving lives or empowering people or whatever. And it's really vague, that it's hard to quantify, and it's kind of confusing. Like, how are you enhancing lives? That's kind of broad, right? How are you improving lives? How are you empowering people? So if you find yourself having a mission statement that is kind of broad like this, I want you to articulate your what a little bit better. So when you say empowering people, what does that mean? What do you specifically do? What do your products and services do to empower people? Do they build independence? Do they build confidence? Maybe you build independence with at-risk youth. Maybe you build confidence in youth with special abilities. Maybe you equip veterans with PTSD with coping techniques. Okay, so that says really specific. And what's great about this is then we can hone in on How do we measure independence? That's something that we can measure. Improving lives is pretty vague, but we can measure if somebody feels like they have increased their independence. We can measure whether or not somebody has added coping techniques. We can measure if somebody has increased levels of confidence. Okay, so that's why you want to get real specific so that things can be measurable. And once you get that really beautiful mission statement that is saying what you're doing, for who, and your desired result, then you want to ask, do all of your programs do that thing? So, let's say I have developing life skills for foster adopted youth for healthy transitions into adulthood. And let's say that I have like these addiction counseling groups going on, like AA happening at my facility every Tuesday night, and anybody's allowed to come. So does that program equip foster adopted youth with life skills for healthy transitions into adulthood? Maybe I could articulate that many of them have addiction issues, and so they needed this extra service and it helps. Maybe, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's not on mission, and maybe it's actually pulling us away from our primary mission. And now people don't really know if we're an addiction source or if we help foster adopted youth. So one thing that nonprofits do that causes them to fail is they don't stay focused on what they were supposed to be doing. And it makes people not understand their mission. It makes people feel like you don't have integrity. So you say this is what you care about, but what we see you do is different. Okay? You don't know how many people have read my book and have implemented my program model and have said, Rebecca, this would be so good for kids that are at risk, or kids that have emotional issues, or kids that have behavioral issues. This is not just good for foster adopted kids. This could be good for everyone. And I adamantly say, no, I'm not opening this up to every kid. It's not fair to the kids that I'm trying to serve with early developmental trauma to open this up to every kid. The program was developed trauma informed with these kids in mind, and that's how we're sticking to it. And I think that that's when you do a service to a population, when things don't get super diluted. I'll say one more thing about that. You don't need to include everyone. Inclusion isn't always the best. And sometimes you do the most healing with exclusivity. Meaning, if I was an addict, drug addict, and I was going to a group for drug addicts, and I understood that in this group, everyone had some had a personal lived experience with addiction, then I would feel a certain way about being there. I'd feel not judged. I feel like people understood me. I felt a sense of belonging, which is so key for people to engage in your programs and services. And now if they're like, there's a lot of other people we could serve, people that have been touched by addictions, parents that have had kids that have had addictions, but they have never had an addiction themselves. And we're going to let them in too, because, hey, you know what? They're donating and they need services. And I don't really know how to say no to people. Now, me as an addict can see the sense of the room change, and my sense of belonging is changing, because now when I share things about my experience, I'm getting the experience of a mother that is frustrated about her kid's addiction, but doesn't know anything about what it is, like the struggle of it. So now I'm like, this place isn't for me anymore. I like the exclusivity of a safe space. So I know that's a little bit of a tangent, but you really do need to get focused on what you're doing, who you're doing it for, and your desired result before you can ever measure if you're being successful in doing that. So get real clear about that. Ask yourself if all of your programs do the thing that you say you're doing. So if you're developing life skills, do all of your programs do that? If you're doing birthday parties on the weekend, or you're doing all these other networking events and all that stuff, are they part of your mission? Are they helping your mission in some way? Can you at least articulate that? Do you do more than just develop life skills? Like maybe you're like, you know what? We're actually like providing wraparound services, and we need to include that in our mission. That's fine too. But either get rid of programming that doesn't fit, or adjust your mission to be more accurate of the programs that you have. Some great examples of mission statements are empowering children and adults with physical, emotional, and cognitive challenges to live healthier and more independent lives, because we know who is included, children and adults with physical, emotional, and cognitive challenges. And we can measure if their lives are healthier or if they're more independent or if they're both. We can measure those things. So that's a great mission statement. Fostering independence in at-risk youth to achieve self-sufficiency. We can measure self-sufficiency. And usually, part of this, and we'll talk about this a bit later, but we define what self-sufficiency is. So obviously there's probably a definition of that in the dictionary, but self-sufficiency to your population is going to be different. So maybe at-risk youth self-sufficiency looks different. And the three things that are included in self-sufficiency are education and housing and a job. And so that's how you measure self-sufficiency. So you want to think about all the words in your mission statement. And it's like, what does healthier mean? What does more independent mean? How do we measure that? How do you as an organization define the things in your mission? Okay. So measurement is accountability. All right. You have to be accountable to your mission. If you're going to say that you do things, it's your duty to prove or at least learn if you are doing what you say you're doing, and then show that to your donors. Okay. If you're going to collect money for a service, then you should be able to prove what you did with that money. And it's really also just a good learning activity for you to do to see where you could improve. Is this working? It's good for everything, to tell donors where their money went and how you're doing, to see how successful you're being, to see where you need improvement, to see what works, to market your program. All of those things is going to need some program evaluation and some data behind it. Okay. So, then you need to figure out which indicators or performance measures clearly communicate that you're actually doing what you said you were going to do. So we're going to talk about developing these measures. Again, a worksheet to go with this at catulo.com/metrics. That's KOTULO.com/metrics. And you can grab your worksheet. Okay, so how do you choose metrics? Okay, we're going to break this down real easy. 3 metrics. How much, how well, and is anybody better off? Okay, so how much is how much service did you deliver? How many people? How many dollars? How many sessions? Anything that you can quantify. How many registrants? How many attendees, right? We're all really good at this. We usually have the data at hand. And we talk about all the time, we want to have 25 participants, and next year we want to have 50, and the year after that we want to have 100. We set goals like that. It's great. I don't know if people care, but it's great. Okay? It's easy to do. Then quality. The quality measure here is how well did we deliver that service? Okay, so we're going to have a metric that's going to be a specific indicator of how well we delivered it. Not just that we did it, but did we do it well? This might be like response time and support calls. So maybe you had 16 support calls come in, and your quality measure is what % of those did you actually respond to within 24 hours? Because that's your standard. And so you have a performance measure around how well you did it. But then the big one is anybody better off? And that is speaking to how much change did we produce, or what's the quality of the change that we produced? Now, the how much did we do? We want to think about who are our customers and what services did we provide them. The how well did we do it? We want to think about how well did we provide those services? And is anybody better off? We want to think about what is the desired impact of the services on our customers or clients. Okay. With the how much, it's usually reported in a number. Like I said, number of registrants, number of students, number of attendees, number of sessions, number of dollars. The how well did we do it is usually in a percent. So that's going to be, percent of those people that did something, or percent of sessions that started on time, percent of calls that got answered within 24 hours. And then the is anybody better off is going to be a number and a percent. Okay. So let's think about the how much being a certain training that you're offering. So we had 10 kids enroll in a training. How well did we do it? Of those 10, 80% actually completed the course. And then is anybody off of that 80%? 5 of them actually used the trainings and got a job. And that's 50% of the overall. So you can do it in a number and a percent. Because as a donor, I want to know if I'm giving to this program or this educational training or whatever, I want to know how much you're doing, but I also want to know how well you're doing it. And did anybody do anything? Like what happens when people get this training? Like, how do you improve their life? Okay. Now, let's go through some examples of that. So with my program that I have, the Stable Moments program, which is developing life skills in foster and adopted youth for healthy transitions into adulthood, we have number of clients enrolled. So let's say we have 25 clients enrolled. That's great. Okay. And then a quality measure, how well did we do it? Well, one of the parts of our model is that there's an activity log completed every time, so that we're collecting data on how the sessions went and how we work towards the kids' individualized plans of care. So for our quality metric, we are going to track the percent of activity logs completed. Okay. So if we're doing our job well, we should have 100% of activity logs completed, because every single session should have one. Okay. And then, is anybody better off in our program is the number and the percent of clients with improved life skill scores. So if they take a test at the beginning that says where they're at on their life skills, at the end of our 10-month program, they should have improved life skill scores, right? Okay, so that's one example. And then let's talk about a program that helps aged out of foster care youth get GEDs. So you're going to have the number of kids enrolled in the program. How well did you do it? What's the percent of students that actually complete? And then there's the number of students who actually get their GED. So just completing your course doesn't mean they pass the GED test. So the number of students that go through that enroll for your course, the percent of students that complete the course, and then is anybody better off? How many of those students actually get their GED? Then what I like to do is go even further, okay? Because you still yes, if I'm a donor, I want to know that my dollars are going towards getting kids through this GED program. And I can kind of make up in my head or surmise why kids need GEDs. But if you're trying to say that you're working towards self-sufficiency, you really want to measure, are they becoming more self-sufficient? Not just getting GEDs. Your mission statement may be providing training to aged out of foster care youth to get GEDs so they are more self-sufficient. Okay. So you do want to track how many GEDs you're doing, but the big one, is anybody better off, is, are they more self-sufficient now? So how you do that is you follow up and you collect data on how many got a job. You collect data on how many kept a job. Okay. So that might be 3 months out, 6 months out, a year out. Okay, so you might realize, though, that you need to develop some new data collection tools, okay? Because you can't just say, okay, we're going to now track how many people are enrolled, the percent of them that complete, because you'll probably have that data. And now we're also going to figure out who got their GED. Well, You can't just say you're going to track that, because it might not be that easy. Maybe the kids like finish their training and they go off and you don't even know when they schedule their tests. Maybe you schedule their tests for them. But you don't know if they went to it, or maybe it takes 6 weeks to get test results back. I don't know how GEDs work. But at some point, you're going to have to figure out if they passed their GED or not, if that's something that you want to collect with data. And it's not easy when you don't own the data. Okay. So then you come up with processes. Maybe on their last day before they complete the program, you have them signed up for the test. Maybe you work out with the county that they come to your place for the test, your facility for the test. Like, you control it as much as you can so that you can understand who's doing what and supporting them the best way that helps them pass. But let's say that, you have to just rely on calling people to see if they pass their GED a couple weeks later. Well, you might want to incentivize it. You might need to say, hey, we're going to give you a $20 Amazon gift card. If you pass, we'll be so excited for you and you get an Amazon gift card. Just let us know as soon as you pass. And then if they don't let you know, you can have processes in place where you're following up and, hey, Brandon, just checking in with you, wondering if you passed your GED. We really would love to give you this gift card. Okay. So you need to go through and think about all the data you want to collect and who is doing what, like right down to the very granular level. Who's collecting the data? Who's sending the emails? What spreadsheet are you using to track the data? What are the monthly, yearly, annual processes for you to use to be able to track that data? Okay. You might need to implement pre and post tests. Okay. So that's what I do for life skills development. I think it's a great way to understand if your program has done anything. So say you have something, a program that is about diet and exercise, teaching families how to cook at home, how to cook for themselves, to eat a healthy diet, and to exercise. Well, so you could do a pre-test prior to see how often they eat out, what types of food they eat, how often they exercise, and then you could do a post-test at the end. Exact same questions. They're the exact same test, but their scores should go up. Okay. So if they say that they were eating out 4 times a week, now maybe on their after your program, they're only eating out 1 day a week. So that's a significant improvement, and you can report on those numbers. Now, let's say you've been running a program for a while and you didn't do a pre-test, but you don't want to lose out on that data and you wish, you'd like the pre-post test design. What you can do is a retroactive post-test. So you can actually do a post-test that says, the questions are like, thinking back to before you started this program, how much did this program impact how much you ate out or how much you exercised each week? And then that can be like significantly, very much, not at all, those Likert scale. So that's one way to say that your program had a significant impact on that without doing the pre and post test and analyzing or comparing those data points. You can do activity logs. You can have people time track. You can do surveys. So you might need to do a survey that's at the end of the program that evaluates your program, that just helps you learn whether or not it was successful, whether you delivered the program in a good way, whether there's been any improvements. Keep your surveys short and to the point, and just collect the data points that you want to collect. I have a YouTube episode on writing good surveys. So check that out if you're interested in surveys, because everybody writes surveys, but everybody's also surveyed out. And then you might want to do a 3, a 6, and a year survey. Okay. So you actually send a survey and say, we're checking up. Have you used what we taught you? How are you still doing? And that way you can say, we've tracked that our participants, even a year after completing, are still, or 50% of them are still not eating out, or are sticking to the diet or the exercise plan or something like that. So that's how you collect that long data that you can really make the case for you're making a change in this population. So I love the long data. Surveys are hard to get people to just fill out, especially if you're like, I sent a 3 and I sent a 6 month and I sent a year. So incentivize them, tell them that they'll get money or some gift or gift card for filling out those surveys for you, and budget incentives. And then the other thing too, what I like to do, and I think is the biggest learning activity, is structured interviews. So, send an email that's really personalized. Hey, Brad, checking in. It's been 3 months since you completed your program. I can't wait to hear how you've been doing. Let me know, like, what have been your biggest barriers? Don't make Brad feel bad if Brad's sitting at home and he's like, oh my God, I haven't done anything since that program. So be like, what have been some of your biggest barriers? Like, we would love you to be completely honest with us, because your honesty only helps us address these barriers for the next cohort or whatever. We would love you to take this survey, or tell them to jump on a call, but make it very interpersonal, and talk. If you can say anything about Brad and who he is as a guy or what he likes, he'll feel that sense of belonging and want to give you the data more. But what I like, if we are tracking 3, 6 months, and a year, at least at the year mark, to actually schedule a call. Again, you can incentivize this and say, if you can give me a 30-minute call, I'll give you a gift card. But that's where you can really get more in depth. And I would just record these calls, and you can learn a lot about how your programs works, what they've been up to, how it's affected their life. And I would suggest just creating a little, it's called an interview protocol, and just have your 5 questions or whatever. Maybe you have 2 people on the phone, one taking notes and one just listening, but ask the same questions to people and have a deep conversation. That really builds the relationship and allows you to collect the data. A lot of times I just hear people say, well, we sent surveys, we didn't really get a response rate. Blah, 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 blah. It's not good enough. Okay. Like, you're doing something wrong. If people aren't responding to you, you need to do more and make them like you and make them feel like they're part of your organization. They are your clients. You need to love on them. And they're giving you something. So acknowledge that. Okay. Now, the how much we do, this is most reported. Like, every nonprofit talks about how much they do. We had 25 kids. We had this many sessions. We do this many dollars. We gave this many bags of dog food. We matched up this many mentors. Everybody talks about this, but honestly, it is the least important. Nobody cares. I mean, I don't want to say nobody cares, but as a donor, or me, or with all these competing nonprofits, I mean, it just doesn't tell me that much. If I say that I'm serving 50 foster adopted kids in this community, it doesn't mean anything, because as a donor or an outsider or stakeholder, I have no clue what that means, or if the kids even want to be there. Maybe they're court ordered to be there. Like, I don't know what serving those kids mean, but you think you're doing something great, but you're like assuming that they know that. And so anyway, it just doesn't mean that much. I would rather you serve 2 and change their lives than serve 50 and, I don't know, had slid a free gift card under the door. Like, I don't know what your programs do, but quantity isn't always that important. Quality is super important. The how well did we do things, but that's more of an internal performance metric. So just making sure that your programs are running the way that they're supposed to. So that's things like your response time to support emails, or whether you're doing activity logs. Those are just things to make sure, are we doing how we said we were going to do this? But it's more of an internal metric. So the thing that's the hardest to track is is anybody better off? It's the thing that we do with these pre and post tests. It's the structured interviews. It's this follow-up surveys. It's the tracking. It's the thing that needs all of the processes in place. But it is the most important. And if we can get a grasp on these yummy numbers, people are going to believe in you. People are going to see that you've put your money where your mouth is, and people are going to give to you. And even more importantly, or probably simplistically, like, you'll have this huge weight off, because you know your numbers, you know how you're doing, and you have confidence going out and pitching your program. You're not just saying like, please help my little thing, my dream. No, you're like, this is what we're doing in this community. I have evidence to show it, and we are asking you to be part of the solution because this population deserves it. Okay. It just shifts your energy. Okay. So we want to choose how much, one measure for every single one of your programs. Choose a measure, at least one, of how much, how well, and is anybody better off? That that worksheet is going to help you really do that. It has all the questions you need to ask yourself to write out in that worksheet, all of the indicators possible. So you might have a lot of things that could say how much. It could be how many people enrolled, how many sessions you do, how many dollars you bring in. Like, you could have all of these indicators, right? Just for how much. So what you want to do is go through and understand which one speaks most centrally to what you say you're trying to do. What one will communicate to everyone? So is it students enrolled? Is it students that have how many sessions you're actually doing? Just what measure speaks the most to what you're trying to do or what you said you would do? Same with how well, and same with, is anybody better off? How well, like, you could have a measure of how many sessions start on time, like percent of sessions that start on time, but that might not be a very good indicator, because say you work with a population that's chronically late, or they have transportation issues. So it's not really an indicator of whether or not you're performing well. But maybe you have a program where you're teaching professionals to be professional, and you're, teaching them to get jobs. And part of your how well is percent of people that are showing up on time. And if you're doing your program well, they would be showing up on time because you're teaching them how to be professional. Then it would be a good measure. So you want to choose ones that truly speak to what you said you were going to do and the center of your mission. And so once you have collected the how much, how well, and is anybody better off, I want you to make a process for collecting each one of these. So if it's number of students enrolled, how are you collecting that? Is it a spreadsheet? Who has access to it? How easy is it to pull that data? How well, if you're tracking how many activity logs or response times, how do you know that you responded to all the support calls within 24 hours? Figure out a process, figure out how to track it, create a standard operating procedure that everybody's doing it, and pull those reports monthly, quarterly, however it works for you, okay? And is anybody better off measure? You want to make sure, yes, so like percentage of kids that have increased life skill scores, percentage of kids that have or adults that have gotten a job. Those are great. But you also want to think about if the data is available. So say you really want to choose the one, is anybody better off? And it's how many people have kept a job for more than a year or still have a job a year out from your program. And you're like, that's going to be the metric we're going to report on because it's the most meaningful. And I agree with you. It's the most meaningful. But maybe you've called and you've emailed and these people are really trying to nail down because they are transient and they don't have secure housing and they don't have, their phones get shut off a lot and all of that. If you're like not getting a hold of anybody at a year, then it's probably not a good indicator because you don't have the data to support it. So you want it to be as far down the road as it possibly can be so that you can really show your impact. But you also want to be able to get the data, your hands on the data without killing yourself. So think about that when you are making your metrics. And then you also want to report these metrics and how you're doing in your progress at team meetings and report it back to your stakeholders. Use all of these yummy metrics and these numbers in your processes and how you're learning and what you've implemented and how you're doing pre and post tests and how you're doing structured interviews to follow up with people and all of those cool things that you're doing. Report it out. Tell people that learning is important to us and we are dedicated to making sure that we are getting it right. Okay. And of course you can make it visual and update charts on your websites and have people come to your website. And the first thing they see is, 96% of kids that take our course earn their GED. 62% get a job within 6 months. Oh, I'll give you my money. Those are good, yummy, yummy numbers. Okay. So I also just want to mention real quick, and then we will have some time for questions as long as I can figure out how to watch the live stream. So making this plan isn't enough. So you're going to figure out these metrics. You're going to get all of your processes in order for you to collect this data. But making this plan isn't enough. Because what happens is we say that we want to do our mission and our vision, and that we have all of these, focuses, and we want to track these metrics, but what we end up doing are all the other things, right? Volunteer says, hey, we should sell bracelets at the farmer's market, and we should do this, and we should do this speaking thing. And okay, and we go off and we do a million things. There's this grant that has this deadline next week, but we should really do it, and we kill ourselves to do it. And all of these things that may or may not have a high ROI on our mission. So I want you to not only choose your measures, but also choose a goal. So if you are going to choose that your how much goal is number of students enrolled or number of participants you have, then I want you to make a goal that you're going to have 40 new students, or you're going to have 10 new students, or whatever. If you want to have your indicator for how well is your percent of support calls that were responded to within 24 hours, then it should be your goal maybe is 90% or 100% are responded to within 24 hours. And is anybody better off? How many kids got their GED? What's the percent of that? You're going to have a goal of 70. Okay. And those goals will just keep you on track for a target and keep you something to hold yourself accountable to, and see if you met target or not. And again, you're going to have those 3 headline measures: how much, how well, and is anybody better off, for every single one of your programs. You also want to have operations and fundraising and sustainability goals. Bring in 3 major donors, raise $50,000 for an annual fundraiser, secure 2 grants that gets you at least $10,000, whatever. But your goals are going to help you understand what's important. And then I actually have this cool worksheet. You can find it. It's Kotulo, KOTULO.com/focus. But it allows you to put all of the things you do. So you're going to go throughout your day and just inventory everything you do. It's just an awareness exercise. So you just inventory everything you do. And then I want you to take that list, and every one of your team members should do it too. Take that list and you can put it into categories of things that are externally initiated, like somebody else called and said, hey, you should do this, and you said yes to it, but it's super low priority. It's everyone else's agenda for you. It's not what you said you would do in your strategic plan. There's that category you can put things into, and then look at what other things you do. They may go into the meaningful but not vital. So they're meaningful, they might matter, they might be good, but they're not vital. Then there's very important and strategic things that you do. And then there's mission critical things that you do. And the reason why it's good to map all these things out is because the things on the low end of the spectrum, the externally initiated low priority, they scream the loudest and they're the most urgent. Hey, we need you to join this thing tomorrow. We need you to get this grant. Da, 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 da. So we tend to jump in and do them without stopping and evaluating whether or not they are one of the things on our high focus goals list. And the mission critical things usually take the longest. They're quiet. They're kind of, they might be in a 5-year plan, but they're the most impactful. So once you have mapped this out, again, Kotulo.com/focus, you can get that worksheet. Once you've mapped it out, you don't want to let the urgent rob the impactful. And what you can do is start procrastinating some things on purpose. So procrastinate the things that do not need your time right now. You can delegate things that you can give to a volunteer that do not need your special secret sauce, your superpowers. And you can eliminate all the things like, we don't need to be doing this webinar with this partner organization every time. Maybe we're just going to record one and they can have it. And that's what we're going to do. Little things like that. But just get back to being focused so that you can measure what matters. Okay. I want to open it up for questions. I'm going to look at my phone here to see if I can figure out how to track. If there are any. Okay. So, okay, so I've got, if I can please get the spreadsheet, the link didn't work. My organization works with several hospitals to support their burn survivors. Many times we don't have the info for the clients. Would you focus on obtaining info from the hospital staff to try to gain perspective for metrics? Or what other suggestions do you have? Sometimes it's hard to get data from them because they're already so busy and they look at this outside service as something additional to their workload, although we're helping their patients. I think that this is a really great question. So there may be, I don't know if there's like HIPAA issues with that, and that may be not why they're giving some information. You know, I would probably come up with an MOU with this hospital, which is an understanding that this is how you can work together and we will provide these services, but we need these specific metrics. Tell them upfront what the metrics are that you need them to deliver and how you would like them to deliver. Try to make their life as easy as possible by giving them a reporting sheet. If you can get actual access to the patient's information themselves, like they actually opt in some way, maybe at the beginning of their services, they give you their email address or some way that you can ethically, legally, whatever, collect their information so that you can own your patients. That is always the best way to do that. But if you're relying on the hospital, I would stop and see if we could come up with an agreement or a contract that just says, hey, we will provide these services. This is what we need from you. And this is basically just so that we can continue to get funding for this great service. But we got to be able to demonstrate our impact. I'm sure you guys understand that. And hospitals should. They have plenty of quality metrics on their own. Okay. We include our business cards in our packages that the patients receive while the hospital, but we don't hear back frequently enough to gather accurate data. Yeah. So, I mean, I wouldn't expect anybody to reach out to you. So any tricky ways that you can get their information, give them an incentive, give them, hey, we want to give you a free gift basket at the beginning, or where should we send your gift basket? Give us your shipping address, you know, little ways that people don't even realize they're giving you their information so that you can follow up with them. Okay. Always incentivizing it. So it should be Kotulo, KOTULO.com/metrics, also /focus for the other spreadsheet. Kotulo Nonprofit Academy has on YouTube has a whole bunch of videos, and so many of my videos have free templates because I just like working during meetings. All right. Any other questions? Let me see if there's anything I didn't go over. I think that's it. All right, guys. Well, also on my YouTube channel, if there's anything that you watch and you have a question about, you can leave the comments right on YouTube. I'll go ahead and answer anything there. I hope this was helpful for you today. And I know that you all have amazing missions and you guys are doing amazing work. So you are worth demonstrating how impactful you're being. You know how impactful you're being, and everybody else needs to know how impactful you're being as well. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys. That was the tea.